All right, welcome everybody. Glad to have you tuning in today to today's Q&A. I've got one of our members, Hari Man, with us, and we're excited to have him here with us today. We've got some great content that we're going to be sharing with you. Hari is a commercial real estate professional. He's also an eQRP member. I know a lot of you have seen him active in Badger Tribe community. But before we get started with our Q&A, I figured I'd let Hari take a minute, share a little bit about himself. I know we're going to learn about him in the Q&A segment, but Hari, welcome, and just take a few moments and share a little bit about yourself so our members can get to know you more.
Sure. Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me, and definitely big shout out to the Badger Tribe. As you said, I've been getting more active there, and the connections I've made are fantastic. Everybody there is super helpful and kind and very motivated and knowledgeable. So it's a great group of people.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're all having a great time in that platform, and it's growing. We're seeing a lot more people get engaged, and of course, we're definitely trying to put together good content for them to consume. So this is going to be super helpful. We're going to learn a lot from Hari and his experiences as a commercial real estate professional. And so I figured what we do is put you in the hot seat and get started with some of these questions. Is that okay with you, Hari?
Yeah, absolutely fine.
Okay, awesome. So, I'd love for you to share your journey from having no experience in commercial real estate to becoming a successful investor, all while managing your W-2 job. I know you still manage your W-2 job. So, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about that, and how did you navigate the process of self-education and learning from trial and error?
hmm Yeah, so I guess I'll start at the beginning. My parents, they were both entrepreneurs. So as a kid, I was kind of around having your own business from their perspective. And especially my dad really um, emphasized the point of how powerful entrepreneurship can be, especially to build generational wealth and being able to control your own destiny, create whatever lifestyle you desire. So that really resonated with me. And after college, I knew I wanted to pursue entrepreneurship, but I didn't quite know what industry or thing to get into. So I ended up learning from my dad, from family, from mentors I had, that real estate is a great asset and occupies a place for many, almost all successful investors, has a significant place in their portfolio. So I ended up kind of narrowing in on real estate being my first foray into entrepreneurship. And thus, Midas Touch LLC was born, which is my company that I started with my dad and two sisters. And I've been serving as the CEO and manager since we established it in about 2014. The way we were able to grow and learn was very slow, very deliberate, and contained a lot of testing, trial and error to make sure that we didn't overrun our financial runway. So I like to use a stoplight method, which I'm pretty sure I don't remember exactly, but I think I got it from Gary Keller's book, the Big One Thing. I'm forgetting the exact title, but basically assessing any new initiative or strategy that you want to do with a green light or red light kind of mentality. So basically what we did is see how much a new initiative might cost us for its whole life cycle, and if we had enough capital in our budget, also accounting for what runway needs we had for the next few months, then we would take that action. And even if it ended up not resulting in returns, we still got a lot of lessons and incorporated those into future growth. So managing our finances was very key to being able to learn from those different trials.
Wonderful. I appreciate you sharing all of that. I love hearing that a lot of what you learned came from the people that you were surrounded with, some of the people who have gone before you, so to speak, and who've shown you uh, essentially a path that you can embark on. And I'm sure at this point, you're kind of flowing with that, and you're learning yourself, and you're adding more to it. And eventually, I'm sure you'll get to the point where you'll be a mentor for others, like your family was for you. So I
Yeah,
appreciate
I would love to. And
that.
that actually reminds me of a quote that my dad always shared with me. He said, experience is the schoolhouse of fools and ill men. Men of intellect are otherwise instructed. I always thought that was a little bit harsh, but the lesson is still good. Like, take what you can from the people who went before you and incorporate those lessons so you can accelerate faster than just learning from your own exposure to risk and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we learn a ton from the experiences of other people, history.
Mhm.
Appreciate that so much. Let's jump into another question here, if you don't mind. You mentioned maintaining your W-2 job while pursuing commercial real estate investing. How did having a W-2 job provide financial reassurance and support your journey as a real estate investor? Can you elaborate on that balance between the stability of a W-2 job and the pursuit of your real estate goals?
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, one thing that I came to realize after doing entrepreneurship and real estate for a few years is that it's definitely not a reliable thing in the sense that like the growth kind of comes in fits and starts, where there will be like a period where you have a sale or a refinance that gives you a large amount of return, and then you're like on the moon, on cloud nine, feeling great. But then that's also matched with long periods of plateauing and not a lot of action happening. So it's hard to build a reliable income that you can consistently have from entrepreneurship, especially when you're first getting started and it's a new industry for you. So you have to be very opportunistic in the way you approach things that come across your desk as an entrepreneur. Try to grab onto any situations that present themselves that could give you some solid return, and then try to manage your growth as you scale up and build up more of those big wins. So counter to that, the W-2 income is usually with quite a mature organization that is reliable and consistent. So having that paycheck that comes in every 2 weeks and can serve as a backup for any sort of low periods that you might have to deal with as an entrepreneur is hugely valuable for just your own psychology as well, because being an entrepreneur, it's an extremely risky thing due to that unreliable nature of when you first start out. But you need to get through that so you can start that snowball rolling down the mountain. And having the W-2 income to always rely on as the backup has been hugely beneficial to give me peace of mind. So I think it's a very useful thing, especially for my position.
Yeah, I think that's really relatable. Interacting with our clients, interacting with clients in my prior jobs and prior roles, I saw that with real estate, just kind of that up and down. And if, things aren't always timed perfectly, you could have those lulls. But like you said, having that W-2 job, that fixed income, that routine has a ton of value. And of course, all of the skill sets that you're learning from that W-2 job, from that established corporation, like you were saying, could be absolutely beneficial and translate into the work that you're doing as a real estate investor as well. So I
Absolutely.
kind of making that correlation there. Um, Shifting gears a little bit, if you don't mind, from your W-2 job to becoming a full-time commercial real estate investor is a significant transition. What factors influenced your decision to maintain your W-2 job while scaling your real estate business? And how do you manage your time and priorities effectively in this dual role, so to speak?
hmm Yeah, actually, it's kind of funny how my career progressed because when I first started, I was doing just W-2 employment as a consultant for federal government clients in the IT space. And my desire was I want to get out of this. I don't want to be a W-2 employee forever. I want to be an entrepreneur and live that lifestyle fully and, have the freedom and wealth that comes along with that. But as I progressed through those first couple positions I had in a couple different companies, I came to realize that there is a lot of value in learning and experimenting and taking lessons from what I can get exposed to in my W-2 to on my entrepreneurship, real estate, and just life in general. So I ended up finding a position that I actually am really passionate about in my W-2 income, which is with a former colleague who ended up starting his own company that I've been working at now for about 2 years. So that's been a really interesting challenge, and seeing the growth from being just a two-person company all the way up to I think we had 31 at most, and now we're sort of back down to around 20 as we're trying to get new work. But managing the time between the two, honestly, it just comes down to having discipline. And what I like to do is block my time. So I kind of look at it from a week to week perspective, not like a day to day. I know some people have different frames of time that they like to work in. So I like to use the whole week and set a couple of very high priority goals in the beginning of the week, and then say, okay, this chunk of 2, 3 hours on this day I put it on my calendar and say, this is going to be for this project or to get done this deliverable or to have a meeting with this person. So planning my week out like that and then having focused chunks of time to dedicate to my W-2 income as well as my entrepreneurship ventures has been critical to make sure that I can at least pay some good attention to every goal that I have, because there is a lot of things that you have to keep in mind when you have a W-2 as well as are pursuing entrepreneurship.
Awesome. No, I appreciate you being able to elaborate a little bit on those transferable skills and giving us the example of how you frame your time essentially at work. That's awesome. I appreciate that very much.
Actually, there
Yeah.
was this funny thing that my wife ended up finding one time before we lived together. I had a whiteboard, kind of like this one here, where I had like goals for the month listed, goals for the year and the week. But then one of the ones for the year or the month was work 4 hours, like legit dedicated time on your W-2 every day, which is like, wait, aren't you spending 8 hours like build time there? But really, like the 8 hours, it can be really impactful eight if you really focus, which people may not necessarily have the mental capacity to focus on something for 8 straight hours. But I figured even half of that, if you can focus, that'll give you enough of a boost to create an advantage compared to other people who aren't necessarily doing that.
Yeah, no, I love that perspective. I'm glad you shared what your wife was saying because it's true. And if you can
She was
set,
like, 8 hours, what?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. You know, I think about many aspiring investors and how they struggle with understanding the institutional financial system. And you and I kind of touched on this yesterday when we were connected. Um, and so those aspiring investors, struggling with that understanding as well as taking control of their finances, how do you demystify the complexities of the financial system for others, especially in the context of commercial real estate investing?
hmm Yeah, I think this is kind of the key thing that I want to bring that is of value to other people I work with, whether they're investors, my employees, just friends that I have. I want to be somebody that you can look to say, okay, he has solved the money problem, and now I can talk to him, learn what I need to learn, and do what I want to do actually in my life. So I think that really starts with mentality. So for me, whatever reason, maybe I'm just naturally inclined to that type of thinking. I was always eager to learn as much as possible, and I had the mentality that I guess what they say is the growth mentality. I never thought that my first try at something was going to be my best try. So going along with that, I think the one book that really helped establish the right kind of thinking for real estate and the way I look at money was Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. That's the classic that everyone usually points to as one of the first books you should read as an investor. And the perspective that he emphasizes there is like learn what money is, learn what assets are, learn what debt is, how those things can be used in order to generate positive things in your life rather than just be kind of the horror stories you hear of people getting into massive credit card debt or student loan debt and not being able to repay that and having a gigantic burden that they have to deal with for the rest of their lives. So figuring out how to maybe solve those problems you may have gotten yourself into as a younger person, or figuring out then how to vault that to super wealth or whatever end goal you want. I find that to be very motivating for me to be able to do. So I kind of break that down into two pieces. One is the big picture, which is, I guess you could say, macroeconomics, or even microeconomics, just economics in general, really. So what I mean is like things like the Austrian School of Economics. I like a lot. I read Human Action by Ludwig von Mises on some of the downtime I had when I was doing consulting work for the DoD. Not a common hobby, but something that I think was very important to help me figure out what like the Federal Reserve is, what interest rates are, how that impacts assets. A couple other things I read around that time were Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations. Actually, I think I read other people's summary of that book, not the actual book, but still learned. And I love reading other books like Ray Dalio, The Changing World Order has a lot of good history and macro kind of trends that you can learn. And I also recently read Klaus Schwab's book, Stakeholder. capitalism, which was a refreshing take on how GDP is not the best holistic measure for a country's growth. So that's the big picture stuff, like how you fit, how your nation fits in the world, how the world changes over time. And then matching that to what I call the little picture, which is everything about yourself or your company. So from as little as like your checking account, to your savings account, your high yield savings account, your pre-tax, post-tax retirement investment accounts, that's kind of like the personal side of things. And then it gets into your business side of things. So what real estate assets could you have personally or in a business? What LLCs might you want to form? Maybe you want to look at different types of entity formation options as well, like S corps, whatever is most fitting for what you want to do. And then you can think about participating with others as well, like joint ventures, delivering promissory notes, just lending to people or taking loans from others to do investments, participating in syndications, and then, some of the nitty gritty, like reporting all that in your taxes. Like how do you do that? How do you execute and then make a plan for someone in your current position, whatever that is, to get to your life outcome you want?
So
So like financing options, SEC regulations, all these different things come into play. And just having some exposure to that and helping guide people through that vast set of complexities is very, it makes me very happy to be able to give people that.
yeah, for sure. And I'm just kind of thinking about the listener right now, maybe that listener who hasn't really dug into a lot of that information. To hear you talk a little bit about some of the books you've read, some of the information that you consumed over time, it made me think of The Creature of Jekyll Island, just some of that content out there that really paints a picture of the reality for people and how they can apply it in their life and understand the institutional systems and how it works. And ultimately, I appreciate you sharing your perspective and how you learned over time to be successful in this space. So if you don't mind, I'd love to keep going. I know
Yeah,
we
let's do it.
cool. You know, multifamily real estate is often touted as a strong and transferable asset. Can you explain why multifamily properties hold such appeal and what advantages they offer compared to other types of commercial real estate investments from your experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. So my experience has mostly been, well, it depends how you judge mostly. In terms of number of units, I would say it's about equal, actually. I've done a lot of more instances of deals in the residential space, so like single family townhomes, duplexes, triplexes, and each one of those is usually it's its own project, which has its own potential risks, its own potential exposure to, the neighborhood it is that it's in. There may be people who end up breaking into your property and causing some damage. There may be, a storm that occurs that creates some issue with leaks in your roof. So many different things like that. And I've experienced, more than just those two, but a lot of those little issues come up when you do each individual deal. And that's how you have to do things when you're at the residential level of real estate. But going up to the commercial multifamily level, a lot of things start working in your favor. Number one, just the how tangible the business idea is in itself. Everyone needs housing. Everyone needs to pay rent or pay a mortgage or pay taxes on their housing. So it's an easy to understand thing. And of course, you can touch it, you can see it, you can examine it. When you also get to that commercial level, you have aligned incentives. So all the other vendors that you have involved, and this does come into play on the residential side too, but like you have your property managers that are in there. They can offer you some information with regards to things that you might want to invest in that'll help reduce some maintenance expenses. Your lender will be involved to make sure that the property is inspected and there's no significant issues involved so that they can manage their risk on their loan. Insurance providers, they do their inspection to make sure things like fire systems are up to date and concrete on the patio isn't like falling to make a fall hazard for somebody. So there's aligned incentives for a lot of people to help you get the right outcome. Not to say that you don't have the responsibility yourself, but there's a lot of people helping you out. Availability of financing is huge. So the government looks at real estate as a high value investment for people to make. So there's a lot of incentives that they provide for lenders to give you good lending options. And there's plenty of different lenders that you can go to, local institutions, banks, credit unions, and even like things on the national level, like big traditional lenders, as well as a lot of hard money type of kind of in between. I say there's like the traditional financing where you put 20% down. And then there's also like the real hard money lending where you can put a little bit less down, but it's a much higher interest rate. And I think there's been a rise of kind of in between those two of somewhat more scaled up, mature hard money lenders. So it's a little bit of a balance between those two that I like to use a lot. Um, Economies of scale is another huge thing. So when you're managing one house, you update a kitchen, you buy one range, one microwave, one fridge. But if you have a commercial building that has, maybe 30, 50, or 100 units, you can negotiate really well when you have to replace, 50 to 100 refrigerators or have some vendor come in and provide you some services. So that's a really big benefit as well. Um, and then just the commercial real estate and real estate as a business in general, I think, as you mentioned, it has a lot of transferable skills because I find that real estate as an industry is uh, very cut and dry in the sense that like the requirements that you need to hit, like making sure you don't break any laws, making sure you comply with paying people on time, making sure people know what to execute and when you're organizing different contractors along a project. Those types of skills I feel like are the core things of any business to operate. So, when you think about a business's organizational structure, you have like HR, you have legal, you have X, Y, and Z, and then there's the actual business operations, which might be unique to that specific business. Real estate is its own business operation, but everything else is the same that can be applied to other businesses. So that's what I really like because my ultimate goal is to learn how to do all that boring stuff in a really good way and then unleash that for doing fun, different types of businesses as a serial entrepreneur.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome how you did a great job painting a picture of why you see so much valuable in that asset class. And I agree with you. I've had so many conversations that um, tie into what you just shared. And in fact, I think it was Chris Price and I that were doing a conversation around commercial multifamily. And same thing. We talked a lot about these same reasons why you gravitate and why a lot of investors gravitate toward that asset class. And anybody who hasn't, it's like, gosh, let's get them connected. Let's talk more in depth about why it's such a great asset.
And one other thing that you talk a lot about is the tax benefits that you can get. I'm not a huge tax expert, so I didn't include that in my list, but I did want to mention that that's a huge advantage within the commercial residential multifamily class.
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of our members that, they're always looking for ways to either receive some of those tax benefits, whether that's, with non-retirement money, bonus depreciation, or they're looking to leverage their eQRP plan to earn those tax-free gains. I mean, that's ultimately what we all want to be the recipient of. Um, you and I have talked a little bit about understanding life goals and creating a plan to reach those life goals. How do you guide individuals through this process, especially when it comes to aligning their real estate investments with their long-term objectives?
Mhm. So I'd like to start with a really impactful quote that I read in another book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill that I think is a good thing to keep in mind when you're thinking about this. I bargained. Oh, and by the way, it's by Jesse B. Rittenhouse. I bargained with life for a penny, and life would pay no more. However, I begged at evening when I counted my scanty store. Life is a just employer. He gives you what you ask. But once you have set the wages, why, you must bear the task. I worked for a menial's hire, only to learn dismayed that any wage I had asked of life, life would have willingly paid. And that really resonated with me because it uh, solidified something I kind of felt always, which is that life is what you make it, really. If you have a goal, and this kind of gets into some of my other interests like hip hop, but it reminds me of 50 Cent, the Get Rich or Die Trying. um, it's true though, really. If you have a goal and you prioritize that outcome very highly in your life, there's really only two outcomes. You achieve it, or the end of your life comes soon, comes first. So not to say that that's a desired, but
Right.
it really it shows how powerful that type of thinking can be. So the way I approach it is trying to work backwards. So this is kind of laid out in the book, Think and Grow Rich as well. But start with defining what lifestyle you want to live. Like maybe you can ask yourself, what does your perfect day look like? Or what does your perfect week look like? And don't necessarily just say like sipping margaritas on a beach, because I don't know about everyone else, but I can only do that for maybe 2 days before I get a little bored. But you really ask yourself and be specific what kind of lifestyle you want to live day to day, right now, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 25 years. And then use that to then bounce it against what your current life situation is. So be honest and talk about, write it down. Who are my loved ones that I prioritize? What relationships do I want to continue growing? What is my current career status? Where am I at right now? What is my financial status? What assets do I have? And also include your personal skills and what you like and don't like doing. Because with that, you can then assess, okay, what am I really willing to give? What can I do to serve others? What value can I generate? And what can I be happy doing that can allow me to then slowly approach that lifestyle, that perfect lifestyle that I defined? So when you lay all that out, it ends up becoming kind of a matching exercise between, okay, that's where I want to go. This is where I'm at right now. And then life happens, opportunities come about. You have discussions with friendly people like Joel or other friends at the QRP, and you end up kind of, it's a funny thing that happens. Your mind starts kind of picking out things where like, oh wait, that option or that opportunity that actually will get me to one step that'll get me closer to that lifestyle. So things just kind of end up growing from there, and you can hopefully figure out a way to leverage those opportunities to eventually achieve that vision that you have for yourself.
Awesome. That made me think a lot about my coworker, Sam. He and I, we share a wall right here, and a lot of our viewers know Sam. He's been with us for a while at eQRP, and he's a big believer in understanding what is that end goal that you want and then working backwards. And you could really follow that strategy with a lot of your goals, your objectives, and you can almost lay it out and paint that picture for yourself, but starting with that end goal. I
Mhm.
love that. I think that's a great strategy. Um,
There's actually, you've heard the concept of vision boards, I'm sure, but there's another thing that I learned in some of my W-2 work, that it's called a postcard from the future, where put yourself in the position of you 10 years, 20 years from now, and write a postcard, explain like, hey, today I hopped in my Lamborghini, I went over to this great restaurant with my friend. We made some real estate deals. We were able to like provide, maybe your goal is providing affordable housing. Like we just signed a new deal to provide 100 units of affordable housing in this city, X, Y, and Z. And that having that vision of being able to imagine yourself in that position is hugely powerful and motivating.
Absolutely. That's great. Transitioning from a W-2 job to full-time real estate investing involves leveraging skills learned in the corporate world. We've talked a little bit about some of those today. Can you discuss how you've utilized some of those skills acquired from your W-2 job a little more in detail to scale your real estate business and how others could do the same?
Sure, yeah. So I will say that everything wasn't directly applicable, especially kind of starting out in my career. So when I first started being, full-time employed as a consultant, I kind of had to just learn how to get by and how to become um, proficient in my area of specialty, which is enterprise architecture. And actually, kind of funny story. When I first started working after school, um, it was a 6 month period with a recruitment company to eventually become full time. So that happened. I became full time, and then a couple weeks later, I was like, well, I'm not really sure if what I'm doing is really moving the needle for my client. Like, maybe I can have a meeting with my managers and ask them, hey, what's my performance looking like? Basically, ask for a performance review. And to kind of to my surprise, given my feeling of not being really doing anything to move the needle, they were like, "You're an absolute rock star. You're killing it." And I was like, "Okay, well, interesting. I don't just want to be a cog in this wheel doing my responsibility and doing that however well, you might be doing it. But what I really want to do is actually take some action that makes a tangible impact on the enterprise I'm consulting for. So I started to kind of raise my periscope a little bit further and get above water, and started to realize that what I could do is volunteer for different types of assignments and different new responsibilities that I felt would be more helpful for my entrepreneurship journey. So, first thing that kind of showed itself to be valuable to me was business development work. So, like contract management, writing proposals, technical writing for uh, winning new business for the consulting company I was working at. Um, then my eye was kind of towards how does this business work? How can I learn as much as possible about this industry to eventually, maybe start my own consulting company. But just additional things like client relationship building, marketing and sales has been a recent new thing that I've been working on, especially for my startup. Um, Managing IT infrastructure and deciding what things to invest in for your company, that's been a very interesting exercise, especially when you start thinking about different scales that different companies are at, as from the money perspective, how much revenue are they generating, as well as just how many employees are there in the organization. Because people are doing change in an organization of 5 people is vastly different than doing it for 500 people. So having those different levels of scale to operate within, and then kind of trying to make a roadmap for myself and how to progress my business. One, hopefully, when I get to the point where I have 2, 5, 10 employees, going through that exercise and asking myself how I would do it if I was in the position of the CEO or an executive has been really helpful to learn some lessons and port that over to my entrepreneurship.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, Hari, this has been extremely helpful, this information. And I figured I'm going to ask you one more question if that's okay. And that ties into something that's close to you. The Midas minute essentially is what I want to get to. And I've explored that a little bit myself. So I was hoping you could explain a little bit about the Midas minute and how it complements your commercial real estate ventures.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, I'm starting to learn about marketing and sales. Actually, I found this to be uh, kind of uh, coincidental, but just very interesting how almost everything I'm learning in my current startup work applies directly to what I'm doing in my commercial real estate work. Because in the commercial real estate side, I am now very active on different online forums, posting blogs, newsletters, basically engaging our outbound marketing campaign after spending a few months developing our internal processes and procedures for how to effectively handle the syndication scale that we want to be at. And one of the things that we started doing is what we're calling the Midas Minute, which is a very casual, very informal thing where I just hold my phone up and record myself about a minute long, sharing some of the key values and um, key principles that have helped Midas Touch grow to where it is today. So hopefully that will help us just share information and share lessons, because one of the things that I really believe in is being generous with information and helping other people grow, because I really believe that what goes around will come back around. Um, so that's one way for us to do that, is to share quick tips in a minute or so of myself, and generate more like-minded people who are go-getters and who want to achieve wealth as well as personal growth. Those are the kind of people who I want to start working with and helping and learn from as well.
That's awesome. Appreciate you sharing a little bit about that. And I know that our listener or our viewer, they could access the Midas Minute on YouTube. If anybody ever wanted to reach out to you, Hari, what's the best way for them to do that?
The best way would probably be our website, which is www.midas-touch.biz. So you'll see our portfolio there. You'll see some education that we've created on there about why we want to prioritize Kansas City as our syndication target. Um, and the other place is, as you said, YouTube. You can check out under Midas Touch. There's the Midas Minute, and also on LinkedIn. You can find us on Midas Touch there. And I'm happy to connect personally with anybody on LinkedIn too. So if you just search Hariman, you should be able to find me.
Nice, wonderful. I appreciate you taking the time, Hari, to record this and share it with our community. I know it's going to be super helpful for them as they're exploring commercial real estate and learning how to be as successful and as effective as possible. So thank you for your time, and thank you all who took the time to listen to this recording, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.